Well, good evening. How wonderful it is to see so many of you tonight, especially considering the cold elements you had to brave in order to be able to attend. We encourage you to run for public office. We're very excited about this fine audience. I'm Gloria Kubishak. I represent the League of Women Voters, and I want to thank Encourage Community Foundation, represented tonight by Heather McKillips and Gus Mancuso, who helped put this event together, as well as our city and county clerks, Cindy Seaprist and Shane Blazer, our University Extension representative, Peter Manley, and Alderman Andrew Kirkpatrick. So thank you very much for your cooperation in setting this event up, and we are very excited to help you learn everything you need to know about running for public office. For those of you who might be in our viewing audience, we would suggest that if you are interested or thinking about running for public office, that you contact your city clerk or your county clerk, Cindy or Shane. They will have one of the booklets that all of our attendees received tonight, which is about 18 pages worth of information, everything that you could possibly want to know. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our opening remarks from Alderperson Andrew Kirkpatrick. Andrew will talk a little bit about running for office and what that meant for him. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very short. Yeah. Thank you. This is kind of a full circle moment for me because about 5 years ago I got to sit in the audience out here, and it was the first time that I got to meet Shane, our city clerk, and ask him a lot of the same questions that some of you folks are pondering here this evening. So before I get started, I got the question here as to, why is public service important? And before I get down to kind of the academic nature of what I prepared this evening, I'll kind of move into why it's important to me. From an early age, I was brought up with a sense that service to the community and to others was important. I didn't really get a full handle on that as a child, you don't really understand what that is, what that means. But as I got older, as I got into my teen years and in my 20s, I kind of realized what that meant. I tried joining the Army once. I just tried joining again about a month ago. That avenue is pretty well closed to me for medical reasons, so I can't really do what I'd like to do there, unfortunately. In my community, I have the opportunity to work with a really great group, the Military Explorers Program. It's a youth mentorship program. In fact, a couple of my cadets are sitting out in the hallway. I also, when I'm needed, and thankfully haven't been needed much lately, I'm a local ride captain for the Patriot Guard Riders. And I also ran for city council and got elected 3 times now. So the question, why is public service important? And bear with me here, I didn't memorize this, so I will be referring to my notes. Public service is important because we as a society have deemed that public service is the means by which we are going to collectively accomplish our goals. We live in what I like to consider a democratic republic. And that means that we live in a society that's governed by laws which are created and passed by public servants. So I think that's something that's worth considering a little bit further here this evening. Our founding fathers didn't create absolute monarchy. They'd worked to pretty well abolish that. They didn't create authoritarian dictatorships. We've worked in our history to prevent and abolish those. They created the U.S. Constitution, which is the basis for all of our laws, from the federal government right down to our local municipalities. Over the years, there have been amendments as society has deemed necessary that certain changes and tweaks and alterations have been needed to be added, but the basic framework remains the same. And I think it's important that right now, before we go too much further, we define what I said earlier, the democratic republic. First, there's democracy. In democracy, eligible citizens participate equally, meaning either directly or through elected representatives, in the proposal, development, and creation of laws. Second is the republic. A republic is a form of government wherein the affairs of the state are a public matter rather than the private concern of the rulers, and wherein public offices are appointed or elected rather than privately accommodated. So kind of let that sink in for a second as to what that really is saying. We live in a democracy that empowers citizens to take part in government. And we have a republic that takes power away from a central authority or a central figure and places it in the hands of the citizens. So the citizen is the most important component of the democratic republic. And what is it that the citizen must do to make the democratic republic work? They must get involved by way of public service. Our Constitution sets up our government requiring public service. It's flat out how our government is designed. Without public service, it doesn't function. So what kind of important things can citizens do in the name of public service? Well, they must volunteer in their communities, mentorship programs, fundraisers. I'm always barking up the tree, we need more people for city commissions. Hint, hint. They must be informed. So citizens have to know what's going on in government, from the city level all the way up to the federal level. That means that you need to be informed as to what's going on there as well. So please come down, ask for a copy of the city budget. Shane would be happy to provide you with one so that you can see how we're proposing your money be spent. They must go to government meetings and ask questions. Get out of the house, or tonight, send out an email because it's cold outside. Make a phone call. Come down to City Hall. Get a hold of your state and local representatives, your municipal representatives. Make them responsible for their actions. Make them accountable for their actions. And what's the last thing that you must do? You must vote. Your voice must be heard. And I can't tell you how many times I had people say, because I like to vote for third-party candidates, you're throwing your vote away. No, never. As long as you vote with your conscience and vote for the person who best represents what you believe in, your vote is never wasted. So don't ever let anybody tell you that. And I guess there is one last thing that you got to do. People have to get involved. They have to run for public office. They have to try to get elected to something. Encouraging greater citizen participation through these types of public services are critical to the health of the community. The more people who take part, the more ideas that we have to be tossed around. What's going to work? What isn't going to work? Why? It's also important that the voice of the minority is not drowned out in the discussion. As will be discussed here later this evening in greater detail, it's important that the opinions of both the majority and the minority be allowed full inclusion at the discussion table with respect. So again, why is public service important? It's important because it's a means to an end. Public service is not simply a right, and it's a duty and an obligation to a strong community. It's how we make our communities safer, more economically prosperous, as Mr. Mancuso will discuss. It's how we protect citizens' rights and civil liberties. It's how we safeguard the environment, and it's how we ensure that the government works for all of its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And Heather McPhillips will speak next about the civil conversations and the Speak Your Piece aspect and the initiative that Encourage Community Foundation founded some time ago here. Thank you.
Do I need to be here?
You don't need to be there. That's
Because
fine.
that's a little too formal for me. So I'm going to talk about Speak Your Piece, and I have a handout. How many of you have heard about this project before? Do you need one? How many? Couple people? Why do you think, or first of all, what have you heard about the project?
I have it up on the wall of my dining room.
Oh,
as a
excellent.
guideline to myself and my son whenever we're discussing anything
Okay.
interesting.
Okay, excellent. Well, why would you want to use this as a guideline?
Because it helps you to concentrate on the topic that's under discussion and not to get distracted in things which are irrelevant. And most of the time, when people get involved with incivility or uncivility, it's a distraction from what you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well put. Any other thoughts about what you've heard or what you know? Well, we've been a part of this program for a couple of years now. I'm not sure if it was from the very beginning or not. And I'm so happy to be following what you said, because there are so many words that you mentioned that directly reflect on the tools of civility. And the words that I heard you say, just a couple of respect, inclusive, responsibility. And I just wanted to share, this is, if you want to hear more about this, please call Encourage Community Foundation. We have a whole 45-minute presentation. But my role here is just to tell you that this has been a part of this program here because we really feel that this is the foundation and setting the right climate and environment for people to feel comfortable to run for public office. This program started in Duluth and Superior. And I had the opportunity to go on a study tour to learn about this. And the whole reason they put this civility project into progress is because they had public seats going uncontested. People didn't want to run for office. They were scared to, quite frankly. And the quote that I heard when I was up there is that they called it a blood sport. And so they decided they had to do something. And so they had a group of leaders in the community that based the program on a book by P.M. Forney, who is a professor at Johns Hopkins University. And he's also an author of the book, The 25 Rules of Civility. And he also did a civility project. So what they did is they took the information from that book and distilled it down into these tools, 9 tools of civility. And what they found is when they first implemented this program in Duluth Superior, as I said, no one wanted to run for office. People were fearful of, maybe having a different voice or having a different perspective. But like you said, it could be the next good idea. It could be the next thing that would help the community. And yet people were hanging back because of that climate or environment. And they put this into place, and within a couple years, they had over 16 candidates for the mayoral election. And now this is a while ago, but at the last time I was up there, they had over 95% participation in their gubernatorial election. And they're so dialed in and connected to and engaged in their community that they were watching, more people were watching the common council meeting on the television Monday night than Monday Night Football. Now, they don't have the Packers, so we have to, it's a completely different perspective. But it really told us that it was really impactful in what they set out to do. And we wanted not only that, as far as getting people more engaged, whether it's public office or in their kids' soccer league or anything, we just wanted people engaged and participating in the community in whatever way they saw fit. But the other part is that we really saw this as an opportunity to help guide, much like you said, conversations from getting distracted by emotions, distracted by different perspectives or ideas. And we wanted this to be a really nice guide for people to stay on track and to help move conversations forward, to keep them respectful, to keep them civil, and yet to create a space that invited new voices to the table. The tagline for this project is, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so we really saw this as a great guide for helping people with that. I had the opportunity this morning or over lunch to talk to the teen leaders in our community, which are representatives from all the area schools, learning about leadership. And one of the pieces that I was invited in to talk about was this program. And this one young leader said, okay, well that's all well and good, but have you ever gone back and found out, does it really work? And I was happy to tell her, first of all, thank you for asking that question, because I wouldn't want to continue volunteering my time if it hasn't made a difference, quite frankly. And what we've seen is not only has it changed organizational cultures, but we've heard common council meetings that have changed dramatically, not only because council members are holding themselves accountable to this, but those from the public that come to speak have to be held accountable to this as well. And so it's not saying we'll be perfect, but it is an opportunity for us as a reminder to be civil, to be respectful, and to take responsibility and accountable for our actions and our words. And when we're held accountable, and when we hold ourselves accountable, that changes the tone and the language of our conversation. So please know that as you go on this journey, whether you run for public office or not, that first of all, the environment is set to be respectful and civil. And we also have looked at those conversations outside. So you may see these posters in a school, you may see them in your church, you may see them in local businesses, because it is about our community wanting to change the conversations that we have. And I welcome all of your ideas and your enthusiasm today. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And in the booklet that you were given, pages 18 and 19 are dedicated to just exactly that initiative that Heather talked to. I'm going to turn it over to Gus Mancuso from Encourage Community Foundation now, who's going to talk about how civic engagement basically makes such a difference economically in a community as well. Thank you, Gus.
Thank you, Gloria, and thank you also to the League of Women Voters for helping participate and putting this very positive and very needed event on for our community. And again, a special thanks to the people that came tonight to learn more about the political process. It's interesting listening to Andrew and, of course, Heather's comments about respect, and you're going to hear the theme of respect and relationships at the end of my short presentation. And it's also interesting how these presentations are connected with each other. Andrew talked about engagement and getting involved and caring about your community and taking the advantage of making a difference in the community. And what we've been doing at Encourage and in a variety of other venues across the community is studying how public engagement affects the community in general. And I'm going to just talk briefly about three specific pieces. We're going to talk about what it does to the community in a positive way, and then we're going to talk about what it means, civic engagement or civic health. First of all, civic engagement across the United States where it's been studied has three really basic effects. First of all, communities that are more engaged, and we'll talk about what that means in just a few minutes, are more vibrant in terms of their economy. They have economies that are growing and are pushing outward to connect with the outside world, if you will. They're more resilient. In down times, they come back faster. And the third piece that is, I think, the measurable at this point is that their unemployment rates are typically lower than other communities. And by that, what we mean is, simply stated, there are more people at work. And I'm going to just breeze through a quick PowerPoint presentation and expand upon what what I've just introduced to you. Civic health leads to a stronger, more resilient economy. And we'll define that in just a few minutes as to what it means. And I mentioned to you that the odds of unemployment are 2 times as high in communities with low civic health. When we had the crash, if you will, of 2008, it seemed like the communities that were more resilient had unemployment rates of approximately 2% lower than communities that were struggling, which means, again, more people were at work. When we talk about civic engagement, what does it look like? And Andrew hit on some of those points when we were listening to him earlier. Civic engagement and people who want to get involved, simply stated, want to make a difference in their community. Like you today, you're here. Some of you were at the Daily Tribune project last night. You are involved, you want to make a difference, and you believe that the social issues in your community are larger than just yourself. You feel some sort of attachment to make a difference. So working to make a difference is one of them. Another indicator of a community that has strong civic health is the number of people that volunteer throughout the community, and I have some statistics about our own community at the end of this presentation. Civic health is also defined by organizations. Do you get involved with social organizations that have a social mission? Are you involved in community projects like Go Green? Are you at the Daily Tribune, wondering about how we can make the downtown better through the use of the Daily Tribune? Are you staying informed? Do you stay connected, as Andrew said, working with the local politicians, expressing your point of view? Those are the kinds of activities, and one that we're really working hard at, encourage to do more about, is how do we connect socially with each other? Communities that are strong in their civil health care about their neighbors. They care about what's going on in their neighborhoods. A great example of that is, I believe it's Ward 1, where a lady by the name of Kathy Rosh and Chad Worrell's ward, they have a neighborhood watch program that is really catching on, and it's a model that we're looking at ways that we can replicate. In fact, at the last meeting they had members from other wards wondering what was going on. So that's what we mean by staying socially connected to their neighbors. And again, you're demonstrating one of the highest ways of increasing social and civic health by getting involved in running for office, or at least considering it. And as I mentioned to people here, not only today but in previous days, if you don't run for office, at least you're here and people watching are getting connected and understanding the bigger picture, which is really important for all of us. So as we wrap up or go through this, civic engagement leads to less unemployment, stronger resiliency, and faster recoveries and downtime. And this is an interesting statistic that is verified through Vital Signs. Vital Signs is a presentation, publication that Encourage has produced through the Center of Wisconsin Strategies. It is available, many of you have seen it already, and tracking the number of volunteer hours in Southwood County for the year of 2012 indicates 193,000 hours of both youth volunteer and adult volunteerism throughout our community. Now, since we've been pushing this, and over the last really couple decades, certainly, that number has been going up, and it really equates to 96 full-time jobs in the community. And those are any kind of volunteering pieces that we've been able to record. We talk about voter turnout, and we're trying to bridge the gap between people who take advantage of the electoral process, as Andy mentioned earlier, and those running for office. And we've got a gap problem there in the sense that for Southwood County in our recent 2012 presidential election, 78.3% of the registered voters turned out. That was slightly higher than Wisconsin's total of 77.3, but certainly interesting, and Gloria and I talked about that earlier this week. We still have a gap in the number of people that want to take a risk and run for public office, and hopefully with programs like Heather mentioned, Speak Your Piece, and us focusing on a community that is civil in their engagement, it allows people to feel that there is a safe space to participate in the public process. So we're working on that as well. Two last slides here that I want to show you, and it's really about what hopefully not only Encourage but others in the community feel. At the heart of all that we do is our community represented in the inverted triangle representing people. And Heather mentioned, again, Speak Your Piece. It's built on adaptive skills in which relationships, respect, and trust are paramount. You trust politicians like Andrew because they're credible, they're here, they're involved, they're role models for others. And it's that trust relationship that allows us to have positive dialogue and work with others. And of course, the whole outside represents Southwood County. And this is a visual that we use to emphasize the importance of building those three components in the form of those triangles around community and people that really are at the heart of us making a difference in our community. And lastly, this is a visual that we use an awful lot in our community, and it's not encourages as much as we hope that it's everybody's. And you being here tonight and anyone taking advantage of the opportunity to increase civic health in our community has one or all or some of those kinds of characteristics. People who love their community get involved. They focus on their assets, and as you can see, they're bridge builders, they care, they develop the community through their own actions, just like you and others do that run for public office. They stay informed, they launch, they participate, they hear all voices, and I think probably as importantly, they work together. Everybody's in it for the right reasons. So again, on behalf of Encourage and certainly on behalf of all of us in our community, we hope that you do run for office and participate in the political process, and we're certainly going to look forward to you being a difference maker in the community. So thanks so much again, Gloria. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Gus. We're going to turn it over to Peter Manley now from the University Extension Office, who's going to talk about all of the different positions that will be on the ballot this year.
Thank you, Gloria. We have had, let's see, I can't do the computer and talk at the same time, so. Right. So we've had a kind of a broad perspective on thinking about on participating and running for public office. And so what I'll do is transition into kind of more of a personal decision, things that you'll think about for yourselves, and specific races that are coming up. And then in the latter part of this section, Shane and Cindy will be talking about some very specific things on forms that need to be filled out by specific dates, and just how you kind of put the wheels under running for office if you choose to do so. So I'll kind of transition into that aspect of it. First, on the upcoming elections, the general election cycle is a 4-year cycle, if you look at the upcoming elections, we have spring elections and fall elections coming up this year. And in the spring elections in general are more nonpartisan. In other words, they're not Republican or Democrat. You can see that on my list on the board, it starts out with some more statewide Court of Appeals, and then there's also the circuit court. That's the circuit court judge in the county. And then we get to quite a few of the more local type elections, county board supervisors, city alderpersons and mayors, village trustees, town supervisors. Now, all of those more local ones, they may also stagger their positions. So not necessarily all of those positions are going to be up for election this cycle, but some of them probably will be, and you should check with the local clerk. You'll probably hear that quite a bit in the next 20 minutes. Check with your local clerk to find out exactly what positions are open. Then in the fall election, that's the partisan election, and we're getting back into the governor election, so there'll be a lot more TV advertising. So the governor, lieutenant governor, those state types of positions, the U.S. congressional representatives and state senators in the odd districts, state representatives, and the county clerk of courts, coroner, and sheriff will be up for election this cycle for this fall. Why run for office? There's a lot of different reasons some people run for office. I remember I had one town board that completely changed one election because of 1/4 mile of road that they were arguing on whether it should be gravel or paved. And it was a hot local issue. After the election, why that 1/4 of a mile of road did get paved. But then they had to think about all of the other stuff that they had to do, and by golly, the next election, the old board was back on. So that driven by a single burning issue maybe gets some people started, but also keep in mind that once you're elected to a position, you don't have control over the issues anymore that you have to deal with. The issues come to you, and if you're going to be a good elected official, you have to do a lot of learning and a lot of listening to people on issues that come up. So that kind of the middle star is probably the more appropriate type of reason to run for public office. And it's also the reason that people who stay in public office for a long time do so, because they are interested in learning about issues and thinking about how to resolve them. We've heard that, we've kind of heard some of these as we've gone on. The desire to make your community a better place to live is a good reason to run for public office. Also, that love of learning. What a lot of people say is they don't realize how much reading that they have to take on once they're elected to public office, keeping track of minutes and new issues that are coming up. Should you run for public office? We'll kind of go through about 5 or 6 things for you to think about. And the first ones are just if you're eligible to run or not. You do need to be a citizen. You have to be a resident of the appropriate jurisdiction. What does that mean? That means you have to live within the boundaries of the jurisdiction of the office that you're running for. And that every so often, not real often, but every so often it pops up that somebody's a block outside the boundary and they just didn't catch it, or they move, and those are, so make sure that you're living within the appropriate jurisdiction. 18 years old, not a convicted felon, and no, you do not have to be a registered voter. Think about your own personal and political strengths and weaknesses. Do you like to speak in front of people, or do you like committee type of work? Or maybe you like to, maybe you're very good at taking minutes or running meetings. All of those are different aspects of being in public office that can be valuable. Think about what your interests in the community are, and you don't want to be too isolated on one issue, on just a narrow range of issues in your community. Think about what types of connections you have with a variety of people in your community, because those are going to, and those issues are going to keep changing as you go through your term. One example I give is that in Wood County, a big issue and it started about a couple of years ago, is frac sand and frac sand mining, and how it impacts the local highway infrastructure and the local economy. And 4 years ago, most of the people that are dealing with that issue had no idea what frac sand mining was. It was just a term that was not out there. So it's something that they had to learn about and think about as that issue arose. And it's I always say that the only thing you can predict that is going to be an issue for you when you run for local public office are dogs and potholes. So you're going to have to deal with those. If you can't stand dealing with dogs and potholes, why you shouldn't be running for local elected office, because those will probably come up. But the other issues there's going to be a wide variety that you'll have to deal with. Think about the political traditions in your community, what those, again, what the boundaries are, what the electorate is like, who actually does vote in the elections that are coming up, and how that might affect whether you will win or not. How much time, money, and energy will you need? And actually, for most, we've had a number of local speakers or local elected officials at previous workshops, and especially for the more municipal and the town, village, and city types of positions. It takes some time. It does not take a lot of money, and it doesn't take a huge amount of energy. Depending on, there takes some footwork and contacting people, but it's not, you don't have to raise you don't have to raise millions of dollars, you don't have to raise thousands of dollars, you probably don't even have to raise hundreds of dollars. But for most people, they're surprised that it's not as difficult as they thought it would be to actually run for office once they decide to take it on. Think about which office is best for you, and one of the best ways to do that is to sit in on some of those meetings for a position that you might be interested in, and more than one. So you can just see how it operates, what the issues are, and what the schedule of the people that are in that position are, to help you decide whether you really want to take that on or not. There's a lot of things that you think about as far as other people having opinions on whether you should run or not. If you do decide to run and jump in, voters will have more people to choose from. Incumbents may feel more pressure to do a better job. Maybe they'll feel that they have to work a little bit harder, but more people will understand local government and the challenges and opportunities facing their community. Because if there is a contested election and people debate a little bit, people pay more attention to that election and just are more aware of the community issues that are out there. Many local elected officials keep running for office because they don't think anybody else will, and they kind of get talked into it. And most elected officials say they'd be glad if someone else would run, not only for the competition, but to let someone else do it for a while. Sometimes, and when they actually do get competition, sometimes they change their tune a little bit, and sometimes they don't. But it's not a right. An elected office is an elected position, and you have as much right, if you're eligible, to run for it as anyone else. Most elected officials want others to get involved in government, and even if you don't run against them, they welcome involvement both by respectfully stating your opinion, sending letters, or participating in different types of committees. So even if you're not running for election, there's lots of opportunities for you to get involved in politics. It can be in a political party. It could be in an organization like the League of Women Voters. And we always hear, share your opinions. Elected officials do really appreciate that. And just kind of being involved in the political process makes our democracy much more dynamic and healthy. So that's just kind of an overview on what you should be thinking about on whether you want to get into a race and throw your hat in the ring, as they say. And so now we'll move on to Cindy and Shane, and I'll let Gloria introduce them.
Thank you, Peter. Shane Blazer, our city clerk, and Cindy Cypress, our county clerk, are going to answer all of those very, very detailed questions of yours about nomination papers, getting signatures, dates, deadlines. So we're going to turn it over to you.
The exciting stuff.
Yeah, we always say that, we're the nuts and bolts of those kinds of things, as clerks. We're the ones that actually keep everybody in line. We check up on everybody. not underneath us. We don't like to say that. We work together with our board. I work closely with the county board. Shane works closely with his city council. And those other clerks that you're hearing about, the town clerk, the school district clerk, they do the same things that we do on their level also. So we're the facilitators of information, the disseminators of information. Everything runs through us, and we keep everybody on track. And one of our jobs is as filing officers. I'm the filing officer for county positions. Myself, treasurer, register of deeds, sheriff, those offices. Shane is a city clerk, alderman, treasurer, and whatever. So if you have an intent to run, like for school board, if that's your intent, the school district clerk is your filing officer. You would get your paperwork from them and turn in your paperwork to the school district clerk, the town clerk, the village clerk, if that's your intent. You can access the ballot access paperwork that you need on the Government Accountability Board website. It's gab.wi.gov. Very easy to access. All of
fillable.
Yes, fillable forms. You will have, there's a ballot access checklist included with that paperwork. Very clear. If it isn't clear to you, definitely call your filing officer, call myself, call Shane. We're always happy to answer questions that you have. But I wanted to make a comment too. We heard Peter say it and we heard Gus say it. Your elected officials want to hear from you. They do. I mean, it isn't just lip service. They do want to hear what you have to say. I talk quite often with my state representatives and my state senators. I have contact with them on bills that are in process or whatever. They want to hear if it impacts something that I'm doing. They want to hear my opinion on it. That's no bull. They do. They want to hear from you too. They're happy to take your call on that. But I wanted to say that before I forgot that.
That's true.
But you might want to talk a little bit about nomination papers and
Did
campaign
everybody get one of these
finance.
packets? Okay. I'll give you guys one, even though you-
Did you get yours yet?
On the top part, probably the first 6-8 pages is a booklet I put together that I had gotten from another clerk years ago. I modified it so it made sense for Wisconsin Rapids. And then every year we update it. Did you need one?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
Want some extra?
So every couple, we have to update it every year with the different dates. And so in that booklet, it has all the information you need to run, for running that complements the booklet that they're getting tonight. And then, I'm sorry.
But if you're not here interested in running for city council, you're here running interested in a village trustee, it's all the same paperwork. The governor fills out the same paperwork as you do. It's standardized. So don't let that deter you that it's information for city council. It's the same paperwork.
So then we get into the main registration form. It's called the GAB1. And that is where you're basically announcing that you are going to potentially run for office. Just because you fill it out doesn't mean that you have to run for office. I always say it's kind of what happens once you fill this out, the newspaper usually gets a copy of it. And so it starts to get your name out there. And also it kind of legitimizes you should you need to start accumulating campaign finances. And really, if you go to the clerk's office, Cindy, I'm sure helps. I help out anybody that comes to my counter and filling it out. Because there's going to be a lot more blank spaces on here than filled spaces when you end up filling it out.
Yeah. A lot of it won't apply to you as in the local.
Yeah, and
setting.
especially in a local setting, it's the treasurer and the candidate are usually the same person. So it's not like you have to find another person to be your treasurer. My office is citywide. I'm my own treasurer if need be. So once you get that completed, you can start circulating nomination papers. However, you have to wait until December 1st. You can circulate starting December 1st through January 7th of this year, or 2014, and they're due in our filing offices by 5 p.m. Depending on your office, depends on the number of signatures you need to get. Our local aldermanic races need anywhere from 20 to 40 signatures. So I think it's relatively easy to get your signatures.
Yeah, county board is 20 to 100. So still relatively easy to obtain.
For citywide offices, clerk, treasurer, city attorney, mayor, they're required to get anywhere from 200 to 400 signatures. I always recommend that you get some extra signatures, just in case somebody signs it that does not live within your district, whether it be aldermanic or let's say somebody from the town of Grand Rapids signed some paperwork for for the city of Wisconsin Rapids. Those get crossed out. So you
Yeah,
always want to get a few extra.
We find so often that people don't know what the difference is in different units and levels of government. They feel that because their mailing address is Wisconsin Rapids, that they can vote in the city of Wisconsin Rapids. But you know what? They live in the town of Grant in Portage County, but there's really not a connect there. So you're constantly educating people about the different units of government, so.
Correct, and we do find that where Grand Rapids does sign for City of Wisconsin Rapids nomination papers, being that they do have Wisconsin Rapids mailing address. But we go through those, and should there be time and you don't have enough signatures, I know I would call the candidate and say, you need to get a few more. So we try to stay on top of that. So once you get your signatures and you get them to our office by January 7th, then the next format, I didn't include it on here because we always keep it in our office because most of the time you come in and we'll have them there, is called a declaration of candidacy. So you fill that out and it's where you put how your name is going to appear on the ballot. Once that's submitted, even in death, your name is on the ballot. It is forever. There's no...
It will be on the ballot.
No matter what, if you decide not to run, if you pass away, your name still appears on the ballot. It's kind of final at that point.
If you decide after that you, for whatever reason, have changed your intent, your name will still be on the ballot, but then it's your responsibility to maybe notify the media that you've changed your mind or that you're deferring to the other candidate. I mean, those things happen.
It happens, or job, or you end up moving, or
It has
there's
happened.
situations that come up.
Go ahead.
Did you have something else?
No,
We always
not,
take
not,
team
not
moves.
specifically about this, but I'll give it.
Sorry, back on the GAB1, I'm kind of transitioning to finance part. There's a box at the bottom side. I always recommend that when you fill it out, this is regarding campaign finance. At that time, I always recommend, at least for aldermanic people, mayors, and they end up spending more than $1,000. That $1,000 is kind of the limit. If you're going to raise more than $1,000, you need to fill out campaign finance paperwork, which I've included. I'll explain a little bit. If it's under $1,000, you don't need to technically report. However, you want to keep track, because if something happens and you end up going over that $1,000 mark, and I mean $1,000 is how much you put into it, how much people end up giving to your campaign. If it gets over that $1,000, you need to report that previous amount of money.
Yeah.
So I always keep track. And it's just money in, money out. So on the new piece of notebook paper, Andrew Kirkpatrick gave me $25. I spent $25 on getting business, or $10 on getting business cards. So you just kind of keep track of that. So,
Yeah, I just question if people that are in favor of your candidacy do independent things to support your candidacy.
Those
Is
are-
that something you have to keep track of?
Yep, those are, it gets a little more deeper into campaign finance, but those are called in-kind contributions. And there is a limit on how much in-kind you can get to it. You're required, if you go over that, if you stay under the $1,000, you can, the threshold is $100. I can only give you $100 in cash or in-kind contributions. But if you go over that $1,000, then the limit is $250. So I can give you $200 in cash maybe I'll buy $50 worth of sign material or wood to help you make signs. So and that total would be $250, and that's your threshold limit at that point.
Or are you talking about, these people over here are doing campaigning for you without your knowledge and.
You might or might not be aware of it.
If you're not aware of it, then you're not responsible for it. But if they are campaigning for you, for a cause, for something on the ballot, then they are responsible for filing their campaign and reporting those campaign finances
One of those
if they
political action
reach those
committees.
limits. And that's not in effect because they are working on an issue on a ballot. But if it's not real, if you're not supporting it, it
Right.
isn't going through your campaign, you're not responsible
Right.
for it. But if they've reached these limits in working in your behalf, it's their
And
responsibility.
you see that all the time in politics, not so much on a local level, but where there'll be
I know
groups,
you were doing that, did you?
where there'll be groups opposing a candidate or an
Especially
issue.
referendums.
Referendums, and those are political action committees, and they go through the same financial paperwork, but they're not involved with the candidate.
We're way over our time. But I wanted to quickly touch on what your responsibilities would be if you were elected to an office, whether it be county board, whether it be city council, or even, town councils. In the county board world, the county board chairman would appoint you to committees that you would be sitting on. You would be educated on those committees. In my world, you would be seated on two of the major committees. They're definitely education because there's a lot to learn for whatever committee you're put on. City world, county world. It's something that I'm sure you're not familiar with, and there is orientation, and it takes quite a bit to get up to speed in what's going on. So yes, you'd be put on at least a couple of committees. County board meets during the day. Some of those committees meet during the day, some meet in the evening. If you decide not to run for a position, there are citizen positions available that we are always looking for somebody to fill. So please, send a letter of interest, and I'd be happy to share that with the county board chairman, that you'd be interested to serve on as a citizen member.
And we have plenty of committees also in the city that have vacant spots. And they could be a committee that maybe only meets twice a year, or it could
As
be
needed,
as
quarterly.
needed, or it could be a very active committee. And we have a range of openings through the variety of committees.
But as we're getting to the end of the term for our supervisors, I hear all the time, and I've been doing this a long time, so many of them, even if they've only served one term, say, I just can't believe how much I've learned through this process. I can't believe how interesting it's been, and the people that I've met, all of them have had such a positive experience with it.
Just quickly, I included a couple of sheets on here on campaign finance. Campaign finance is actually literally a thick booklet
Like this?
that's
Like this? This
yeah.
is if you exceed those limits, accepting money more than $100 from any one source exceeding $1,000 of expenditures, this is the report that you would have to fill out quarterly. So,
But yeah, for citywide offices, I don't know, sheriff.
It really
those-
only happens in my world, in county
Ours
races.
is mayor and.
County board
but-
supervisors rarely.
So really, all I can say is keep
Limits.
track of money in, going out, and then talk to your appropriate filing person, because or even if you have a question, I feel comfortable answering them, so if,
Oh, there we go.
yes, David.
Shane, the people, the signatures need to be in the ward, but can you receive money outside of your ward?
Absolutely. absolutely. But you're still required to
Oh, right,
limit.
everything you were talking
Yep,
about,
anybody can,
absolutely, but I can.
and I've seen that, like in the mayor's race, you know, people from Grand Rapids, anybody can contribute, anybody. But I would recommend if you get to that point, should that happen, contact Cindy or I. Even if we're not your filing person, we can assist you or answer those questions. Just a little bit specifically on Wisconsin Rapids, Andrew probably will just be hearing this for the first time too tonight, is that previously we had Bob Nash, who was District 6, filed non-candidacy paper, so he is not going to run for his seat, which means that we have an open seat, and it's been a while since we've had an uncontested seat by an incumbent. And then as of tonight, District 2, Marion Hokamp, also completed paperwork that she is not going to be seeking re-election. So we have a second seat opening up that's not going to have an incumbent running. So it can make things a little interesting. And we're still waiting to hear, Jean Young hasn't put out there officially, I guess maybe she made a comment at a council meeting one night about not seeking re-election, but we don't know. And then Tom Rayom has completed his paperwork to seek re-election for District 6. So, it should be interesting because we definitely have 2 open seats in Rapids. Any questions?
Just want to ask about the number of board meetings and city council meetings that a board member or city alderman would be required to attend. Is there any minimum?
I would say that and correct me if I'm wrong, I depends on the alderperson. Some feel a responsibility, and Lee Albrecht always comes to my mind. He attended a lot of meetings. But I think ultimately your responsible would be, aside from personal reasons, city council meeting, which is the 3rd Tuesday of the month, and then whatever a committee that you've been assigned to. You'll be assigned to one of the standing committees, and those meet once a month, whether it be Human Resources, Public Works, or Finance and Property. Those are standing committees. And those meet on the 1st Tuesday of the month, typically, if you're on Finance or Public Work. So I would say what you would have to really attend is 2 meetings a month. River City's tapes, so you can always catch a meeting if you miss one. Or if you have, I kind of like the idea of at least Finance and Public Works are on the same night. And one starts at 5, one starts at 6. So if you wanted to stay, you kind of you commit to that evening and you can cover 2 of the main council committees. Then the other meetings, whenever they're scheduled. Or you could be get appointed to the Water and Light Committee, and they meet once a month also.
Peter made a comment about reading. There's a lot of reading material. You are sent a packet of materials in preparation for committee meetings and in preparation for the board meeting. A lot.
A lot. There's
Of
no
materials
short
to read.
amount of reading.
A lot. So it isn't only the time spent, that hour and a half, 2.5 hours, whatever it might be at the board meeting. There's materials to prepare you for that meeting too. Just one. Fully disclose.
And that's what people ask, and I always say that's probably the biggest time commitment you'll have is reading, but you can do that at home, you can do that wherever. In the deer stand, it's just, you can do your reading
Is
whenever.
that what you do?
David?
I got another question. We were talking about you have to be a resident of Wisconsin Rapids if you were going to be an alderman. But you don't have to live in that ward, do you?
Yes.
And you also have to live in the ward.
Because you're representing that ward, and it's probably a good idea that you live within that ward.
And it's the law.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify that.
Yep.
Yeah, I represent Wood County. I have to live within anywhere within Wood County.
Questions? We always have the most exciting part.
We make it exciting, that's it.
It's hard to follow Andrew's good speech there at the beginning.
But we'll be around afterwards if you want to.
Another question was, you can, obviously this is a commitment, it's a responsibility, yes, but it's not a full-time position, so you still have your day job.
And most do.
Yep.
And most do. County board, most of, I don't know, I shouldn't say most. I'm just trying to quickly think of my 19. half of them are still employed, maybe half are retired. Somewhere in there.
Are the majority of them over retirement age? Are the majority of them over 60?
I would say so.
Not us, we,
You have a younger.
yeah, we have younger.
Yeah, right, city, yeah. And in the other municipalities?
You know, I go to the Wisconsin Towns Association meetings pretty regularly. There's quite a mix there, but it's still on the higher end. I like to think we get smarter as we get older, and we have a little more time and civic engagement, and so the age does creep up a little bit there too.
You get a big contrast though between some of the Wood County board members in terms of age, and then you look at the City of Wisconsin Rapids mayor, and it really does show that it is something that anyone can do at any age.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Andrew, how old were you when you were first elected?
24, 25, somewhere.
And you're the groundbreaker.
And you've been in a long time now.
That was Dennis, back in the, Dennis was 18, wasn't he, when he was elected in the 70s?
And they say it kind of gets in your blood, and you know, now you know the groundwork, and you just keep going.
Mhm.
So we can, if anybody has any after everybody else is done, we'd be happy to help out.
Oh, yeah.
But
Absolutely.
definitely call us.
Mhm.
Happy to help.
Thank you, Cindy and Shane, and I would second that. They are very, very accessible, very helpful. They will be happy to answer any of your questions. Just stop in their office, call them, email them. And on the back of that booklet are a listing of all the different websites, so very easy access. So before we conclude, as a member of the League of Women Voters, I just want to tell you about our involvement, not only with helping put together this event, but also the fact that the League sponsors what we call a voter forum. Once you are declared candidate, then before the election, we will, in cooperation with our community access television station, put together a live debate. And we invite all the candidates to attend. And for the most part, we've always had about 100% attendance. And we have questions that are submitted from the audience in the television studio, as well as a listening audience, because usually WFHR will simulcast, and also from a viewing audience. And we'll take all of those questions, we'll filter them for duplication, and then those questions are asked of each of the candidates. They each have so much time. Time limits are given, and insofar as how much time they can answer a particular question. And those are usually held about a month before election. And thanks to our community access station, those candidate forums are continually replayed. So the public has a chance to get to know you that much better. So we thank our community access channel for doing that for us. So at this particular point, that concludes our program for tonight. Again, we thank you for coming out, especially in this frigid weather. But we are so excited to see so many of you interested in public office, and we highly encourage you to pursue that. We're going to open it up to just simply an opportunity to talk to our city and county clerk or any of the other presenters that were here tonight if you've got questions for them. So at this point, again, thank you all.